president weighs in.
Some seem to believe that we should negotiate with the terrorists and radicals.
President Bush's words inject him into the campaign.
We have an obligation to call this what it is: the false comfort of appeasement.
Senator Obama wants to have direct talks with the president of Iran.
Obama strikes back.
If George Bush and John McCain want to have a debate about protecting the United States of America, that is a debate that I'm happy to have any time, any place.
The rough back and forth this week over negotiating with rogue leaders as the general election campaign got into full swing.
It was so outrageous, George. You know, he said we ought to call things for what it is, what they are. Well, what this is raw politics, demeaning to the presidency of the United States of America. I mean, literally.
It really is beneath the dignity of the President of the United States to make these kind of cheap political statements when he's in Israel celebrating the 60th anniversary of an extraordinary country.
I think it was not a good move. It was not helpful.
I'd say it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for people in this country to have a president in an overseas assignment bringing domestic politics into it.
In the history of the United States, the president does not do these kind of things.
It was so strange. I think it was startling to Democrats and Republicans.
It was a miscalculation on the part of the president.
I think it was a mistake for President Bush.
I think it was inappropriate.
It was highly inappropriate on multiple levels.
Was it appropriate for the President of the United States to go before the Knesset and make that charge against Barack Obama and Democrats?
Yeah, let me tell you why, for two reasons that I think so. One, this is the 60th anniversary of Israel, and it's appropriate to talk about appeasement. Because of appeasement, Israel is under threat and still under threat.
The occasion was totally wrong. This was a celebration of Israel's 60th anniversary, and to inflame an occasion like that with words like appeasement is just totally out of bounds.
As Nazi tanks crossed into Poland in 1939, an American senator declared, "Lord, if I could only have talked to Hitler, all this might have been avoided."
Anytime you inject anywhere, but particularly in the Israeli Knesset, the Holocaust, Nazi tanks crossing into Poland, Hitler, I mean, it was just above and beyond anything.
Compared it to what happened with Hitler just before World War II. I mean, that's an extraordinary and deplorable thing to say. I mean, it really is.
Trying to associate this race with Hitler? I mean, look, this is a president that is out of touch.
It shows how out of touch this administration has been with the reality of the region.
Especially coming from a man who's been an absolute disaster, arguably the worst president in American history on foreign policy.
Put this in context. The policy that Bush has pursued and McCain will continue has been an abject failure.
Why is this an issue today anyway? The fact of the matter is Iran has become more of a problem for us because of the failed foreign policies of the last 8 years.
What has their policy wrought? A disaster.
A complete and utter disaster.
The thing that bothers me the most, I guess, is this emerging pattern here. John, a couple weeks ago, or Senator McCain a couple weeks ago, using the phrase, I'm paraphrasing, well, Hamas likes Barack Obama, and Danny Ortega in Nicaragua likes Barack Obama, so you draw your own conclusions. And then the president does this hit in the Knesset. This whole thing, look, they're using rhetoric to masquerade as a policy.
And then John McCain defends him.
From Senator McCain, not to disassociate himself clearly from that, I think indicates that Kane's going to have a third Bush term if he wins.
You've got to convince people that it's just not the Bush third term. If it's the Bush third term, John McCain can't win.
What happened this week was that John McCain acquired a third name, a new last name. John McCain Bush.
In a speech on Friday, Barack Obama mentioned Bush and McCain in the same sentence 10 times in 10 minutes.
George Bush and John McCain, the Bush-McCain record.
They feel anytime they can say McCain and George Bush in the same sentence, that's good for them.
Absolutely. That's Bush, McCain, Bush, McCain, Bush, McCain.
McCain, Bush, Bush, McCain.
Bush and McCain in the same sentence.
McCain and Bush.
Bush, McCain, third Bush term. McCain agrees with Bush. We can't have no more Bush.
But the one thing you can't say about John McCain, which Democrats will try to say, is that he's indistinguishable from George Bush.
He is George Bush.
He's the third term of George Bush.
John McCain is the third Bush term. We've heard him say it over and over. And President Bush handed him a perfect entree to say, look, they're linked in foreign policy. John McCain is the same as President Bush.
The McCain foreign policy is virtually identical to the George Bush foreign policy.
But John McCain is his own man. Anyone who knows John McCain knows that he has an independence in him that is going to be very difficult for anybody to say that he is George Bush third term.
He's the one who said it. He got big-footed, and then he adopted this policy that Bush put out there.
The McCain campaign was completely taken by surprise. I talked to several people inside the campaign. They didn't know that the president was going to do this, so they immediately had to make a choice. Do we jump on and basically associate ourselves with those comments because it's the same kind of argument that John McCain had already been making against Barack Obama, or do we not? They realized that they have to, whether or not the Obama campaign or anybody else is going to say, here's evidence, it's Bush and McCain together. They realized they didn't have a choice.
I think this president basically ought to just do his job, let McCain do his job.
President Bush is going to have a role and a voice in this election, whether John McCain even likes it or not.
He still hasn't spelled out one substantial way in which he'd be different from George Bush when it comes to foreign policy.
Do you see right now any substantial difference on national security between John McCain and George Bush?
Well, no, I think that on the issue at hand, which is when you negotiate with terrorists, you negotiate with leaders of terrorist states, no. But I do think, as McCain has signaled by his criticism of George Bush, that he will be tougher on Iran. I would be tougher on Iran, and I would be tougher on Hamas, and I think that McCain will be.
With respect to Iran, I think you're going to see a John McCain want to engage in a much more aggressive way with the kind of things that we can do to bring pressure to bear on the leaders of Iran.
I have some news for Senator Obama. Talking will not convince Iran to give up its nuclear program. It is reckless.
What's the alternative to talking with a country that's building a nuclear weapon, attempting to? You either talk or you go to war, or you maintain the status quo.
John McCain, saying bomb, 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 bomb Iran. I thought that was funny, but I mean, a lot of people didn't.